I think like a lot of people get so focused on like the amount of money they're spending, but it's really about the education and the experiences you're going to get. To make the best out of law school, you need to learn as much as you can. You need to network as much as you can, and you need to expose yourself to as much as you can. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is the chit chat about finances, paying for law school, undergraduate debt, MBA debt, MPA debt, how that's factoring into the debt that we'll have after we graduate from law school. We talk about scholarships, whether the scholarship is from the school or outside scholarships. We talk about how different types of loans work. Really good video. We go through about 21 different questions about finances. So of course, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that, and I'll be back at the end for an outro. Okay, guys, so if you've watched videos on my channel before, of course, you have saw Alyssa on here, but I'll let her do like a quick introduction about what school she went to and the 2 degrees that she already has. So, Alyssa.
Hi, guys. I'm Alyssa. I've spoken on here before, but I have my undergraduate degree from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I did that completely debt-free, thanks so much to the generosity of my parents. And then I also have my master's in public administration from the University of Pittsburgh. Did not get that one for free. So really looking forward to talking about financial aid in the graduate sphere.
Yeah. So for me, I went to the University of Alabama in Huntsville. I have my undergraduate degree from there, and then I have an MBA from there as well. I paid for both of those. Funny story, not so funny, but if anyone is watching this, don't be like me. So what happened was, in terms of scholarships, like I was supposed to be good to go. Sent in my scholarship, like packet, application. I did not put enough postage on my package, and it came back. So, and then by the time it came back, the deadline had passed. So when I sent it back in, they were not able to give me any money. And then like my other years, I would get like small scholarships, so like 5,000, 10,000, or whatever, like smalls, like maybe not even that much, probably like 5,000 altogether, because it was like an in-state school. But yeah, so don't be like me. So overall, my overall debt, I think I mentioned this on my channel before, but it's like 65K, I think. And then when you add in the interest, it's like 75K. And I've been paying on it for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now, something like that. So.
Yeah, I just checked mine yesterday, actually. I ran through Access Lex again, and mine is about 44K right now. I've been making about a year of payments on it, and I'm on the pay-as-you-earn plan, so I think that's the 20-year plan.
Okay, yeah, and I'm on like the income-based repayment, whatever that one is. So yeah, when you said you've been paying on it for a year, have you been able to make like a difference in the amount you owe, or is it kind of like just paying the interest off?
Really, my payments each month are about $250, about $125 towards each loan, because I have one loan per year of grad school.
Right.
And I think usually out of that $125, about $9 to $10 goes to the principal, and the rest is all interest.
Exactly.
I didn't work enough during grad school to be able to have paid interest, but I really wish I had, because it makes all the difference to start getting ahead on that principal before the interest starts kicking in.
Yeah, same here. So like I said, I've been paying on it, I think so I graduated with my master's May 2015, and then I think I started paying January of 2016, because if you guys don't know, you start paying on your loan 6 months after you graduate. That's when you get your first bill. And when they send you that first bill, it'll actually be a way higher amount. I think they wanted me to pay like $900 a month or something like that. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not paying this much. So you have to like send in paperwork pretty much saying, hey, this was my income last year, and this is what I can pay you. And they'll make like an adjustment for you. And then you have to do that again every single year. But for me, I think I've been paying on my loans for like, 4 years now? And I have not made like a real dent in my loans, like at all, because I'm on the income-based payment plan. And because my loans are so high, like 65K, I'm literally only paying interest. And so the interest just keeps growing. And because I only pay like $280 or $290, something like that every month or whatever. So in terms of 75K, that's not making a difference. And I actually did work in undergrad and I worked in graduate school, but like I was working to live, not working to pay off interest. I probably could have paid like a little bit, but it wasn't a concern then. So one tip throughout this video, guys, is if you can pay on your interest at least while you're in school, like try to pay, even if you're paying like $25, it will help. Seriously.
Yep. I worked during both undergrad and grad school. I've always had a job while I've been in school, and you know, sometimes I think back to like all the like dumb clothes and nights out and spring break trips that I like saved my money for, and I'm just like, Oh, like, the memories are important. Like, you want to be able to look back at your school years and, like, have memories, but sometimes I wish I had a little less memories and some less memories and less debt.
Did you know about the FAFSA, the CSS, all of that? I guess you knew from your other degrees, but like, did you know when you needed to complete them, or how did you know the timelines?
So I was really, really lucky. Like I said, I did not have to deal with FAFSA or loans or scholarships at all in undergrad because my parents paid for everything. So I got to hit all that sticker shock for grad school. And so for law school, I was coming off of that. That was 3 or 4 years before I started. So it was still pretty fresh in my mind. And I had that advantage of having gone through the graduate unsubsidized Stafford loan process very recently. So I was actually a little more on top of things for law school.
Okay. Yep, same here. So, like, I knew about the FAFSA. I knew I had to do that. I did not know about CSS though. And according to my CSS profile, I've done it before. I don't remember ever doing CSS. Maybe I was doing it like for undergrad and I stopped because I didn't want to apply to that school anymore. But yeah, so the FAFSA, I did according to like the school's deadlines. That's one thing to keep in mind too, guys. Each school may have a different deadline for when you have to fill out the FAFSA too. Same thing for the CSS. I think the CSS deadline was I think it was Valentine's Day this year. I think it was Valentine's Day. Yeah. But then the FAFSA kind of varied a little bit. So
best rule of thumb is FAFSA always makes a huge deal when the new FAFSA comes out for the year. Like they send emails and they plaster it all over their website and everything. Just do it then. And you can always go back and change things too. FAFSA is super easy and it's free to change, unlike CSS.
Exactly. And then like in terms of the documents you'll need like your tax documents. If you filed your own taxes, you'll need your parents' taxes. I don't know. I guess if you have kids, maybe you'll have to like talk about like support and stuff. I don't know how that works. I think you have to like prove that you have kids you take care of. I think if you have children, but really it's just tax documents. I didn't need anything else. Did you need anything else for yours?
No, I just needed my tax documents and Georgetown. A lot of schools, law schools, will require parental information, even if because I was living on my own. I was working. I had my own house in Albuquerque. Like it wasn't that I was really a dependent on my parents. But a lot of the law schools will require you to give that parental information just to try to ascertain what sort of background you're coming from.
Exactly. Yeah. So for my FAFSA, I still had to put in my mom's information. That's another thing to keep in mind. Like if your parents are divorced, they usually want the information for the parent that you resided with after the divorce, or the parent that took the most, provided the most for you, pretty much. So you don't have to always provide both parents for the FAFSA. Now for the CSS, they want both parents. They don't care if you haven't talked to your mom or dad in 20 years. They want their information, and you'll have to like literally call them. So for the CSS, I needed like my dad's bank account information, my mom's bank account information. I need to know if they had stocks, if they had any other investments, if they owned a home, if they owned a business. Are they getting Social Security? Are they getting disability? Like the CSS took way more time. Was it the same for you?
My parents kind of caught an attitude with me too. They were like, "Why are you asking all these questions?"
For my mom, it was kind of simple because I'm like, I know your income, but my dad, I'm just like, it's not for me. I don't care. I just need to know for school. So yeah, keep that in mind. It's a process, and it's $25 per school that you apply to. So keep that in mind. You'll need money for that too. I know in my last video we talked about fees, so you do have to pay for CSS, and it will take a long time. But once you get it done, you'll be done with it. The schools will look at it. You don't have anything else to do, unless you're applying to a school like Georgetown that also requires you to fill out a yellow form if you want need-based aid. So I have to do that as well to get approved for need-based aid. And I think it was one other school I could do like a need-based form for too. UCLA required a need-based form. Did you have to do that for any schools?
Yeah, I filled out the yellow form for Georgetown, even though I knew I wasn't going to qualify for it. And it wasn't too bad. It was pretty much just the CSS all over again. Just pro tip though, my mom's a yoga teacher. That was considered a business, which is kind of funny because it's not she just teaches yoga. And the business form was just,
Oh, see, I didn't know anything about that. So that was like an extra thing you had to do with your mom, ask her like all her information again.
Mm-hmm. And she was like so annoyed with me because she was like, I don't own a business, I just teach yoga. But if if any of your parents have any income that is not from a job, it is considered either a business or investment, and you got to make sure that you fill out the extra stuff for that.
Next question. I guess we'll move on to talking about like specific schools we applied to. So how big of a factor was the tuition when you were applying to schools?
It was huge. I honestly, so I was going through this process without a lot of guidance. I had some really good guidance, but all of the people that I was speaking to were like geniuses. They had LSATs and GPAs much higher than my own. So I didn't know where I was going to get scholarship or not. And so I applied to my dream school, which was Georgetown. And I remember looking at the cost of attendance and just like sobbing because I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't get scholarship, I can't go here. It was ridiculous. So I actually did apply to University of New Mexico, which is a school that, it's a great school, but they have none of my interests there. And honestly, the only reason I applied was like, well, at least I will get in-state tuition.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's one thing to keep in mind too, guys. So like public and private, maybe, is that what makes a big difference? Because I feel like all the schools I applied to that were private schools, their tuition was a lot higher. Like Georgetown, Vanderbilt, their tuition was a lot higher, I feel like.
Yeah, the difference is like public schools will generally have lower tuition, but they'll also have in-state and out-of-state. So make sure you check that out-of-state if it's not your home state school. Like don't be confused. Like sometimes these public schools, when you're paying the out-of-state, can get really expensive. Like I went to Pitt, and all of the Pennsylvania state schools are really expensive, but their out-of-state was just astronomical compared to the in-state. And like Pennsylvania is my home state, but I was not a resident of Pennsylvania when I applied to Pitt, and I had to pay the out-of-state tuition, and that really, I could have graduated debt-free if I had qualified for in-state.
Really? So were you able to get in-state your like second, third, fourth year or no?
So Pennsylvania is really, really weird. In order to establish residency as a student, you have to basically write an essay and make a statement saying that you plan to stay in Pennsylvania for like the foreseeable future. And even though I love Pennsylvania as my home state, I'm a Philly girl through and through.
Mm-hmm.
I just could not in good faith lie like that.
I would have been like, I love Pennsylvania.
Also, my program was only 2 years, so I don't even think I met the time requirement.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing too. So I don't know. I think I mentioned this in the video too, guys, but I originally wanted to go to UNC. So I actually moved to North Carolina and got a job with the intentions of like changing everything over to get in-state tuition for UNC. And I think the requirements were like you had to register to vote. And if the time to vote had passed, you had to actually have voted. You had to have your registration there, your driver's license there. You had to have an apartment there. Even like little things, it's like changing your phone number, making sure that like your bank accounts for North Carolina bank accounts. It was like stuff like that. So if you guys want to try to get in-state tuition for your 2L and 3L year, definitely possible, but just look up like the requirements for the school you're going to. And if it's a private school, it doesn't matter because tuition is what it is.
You're paying a high rate anyway.
So can you kind of explain to people the difference between tuition and cost of attendance?
Yeah, this is another big one that tripped me up with Pitt. Was I had about 75% scholarship at Pitt. So I was like, oh, this is going to be a breeze. This is going to be really cheap. And then you don't realize, but when you're in grad school, like I knew a lot of people who were able to do undergrad without taking out loans for living costs because you were able to work enough during undergrad. And like, that's great. But in grad school, and especially law school, you will not be able to work to support yourself. You really shouldn't plan on being able to work enough to pay rent, pay groceries, pay your car note, pay interest on your other loans. So you're pretty much going to take out loans no matter where you go. Even if you get a full ride, unless they're offering you a generous living stipend on top of it, full ride does not equal no loans. You have to take out the number that you get. The cost of attendance is that school's estimate of how much it costs per year to live in that city and go to that school. That's the number that you have to kind of plan on providing, whether that's through loans or scholarships or savings.
Exactly. Yeah. So like pretty much you'll have to pay your own rent, your own like insurance, like car insurance, health insurance. If you have a car note, you have to think about that. If you need to like buy groceries, like most people do, you have to buy your own groceries. You have to pay for like gas. You have to pay for transit. Like all those fees have to be added into your loan amount unless your parents are paying or unless you saved up money or unless you're going to do like maybe a private loan or maybe you're going to apply for like outside scholarships, which we'll talk about in a second. But typically, most people that are in law school, they are paying for everything with a loan. It's just how it works.
Yep.
So, with that being said, did you choose the school that gave you the most money? I'm assuming not.
I did not. So I ended up getting full ride at a lot of great schools, including my parents' alma mater. And it was really tough to decide between, the biggest one for me was I got full ride at Howard. And Howard my goals are big law in DC. And Howard is amazing for big law in DC. I also had never had an HBCU experience, and that was something I was really considering. And so that was really hard to look at Georgetown, which is higher ranked in DC as well. And I have about a little more than half scholarship there. And then Howard, full ride right down the street.
Literally.
And it was a heartbreaking decision. Honestly, no shade to Howard, but their office was like really slow in communicating with me. They kind of like ghosted me for months and didn't tell me I had full ride until the last second. And by the time they told me, I had already committed to Georgetown.
Really?
But if they had been faster to give me that offer, I might be saying go Bison right now, honestly.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. So God really had a plan right there, because I think he wanted me at Georgetown, and he made sure that the timing worked out that I picked Georgetown. But honestly, it came down to, and I think I don't want to go back into that other video that we filmed about the T14 and Big Law, but it came down to me where I knew Georgetown was going to be a little more pricey than my other options, but they had the classes that I wanted. And I also recognized that I was going to have to take out loans no matter where I went. So if I was going to take out loans, I was going to take out loans from my dream school.
Exactly. That's exactly how I feel. So I got a full ride to Alabama with the stipend. I think it was like $2,500 stipend. Yeah, but still, I was just like, I'm from Alabama, if you guys know that. I'm from Alabama, not from Tuscaloosa, but still. But I just was like, I don't want to go to Alabama. It wasn't even, I think Alabama was a really good school. Like they produced some really good lawyers. It just was for me, I'm like, I'm not living in Tuscaloosa for 3 years. I don't want to risk the chance of getting stuck in Alabama or even getting stuck in like Tennessee, Mississippi. I just didn't want to risk that personally. So for me, but then I got good offers from like William and Mary too, like 97%. I got like a good offer from UNC, my dream school that I thought was my dream school. So I don't know, but for me, it's just like I still haven't even decided yet. But for me, it was just like, yeah, I want the most money I can get, but my main factors was not money for me.
Yeah, like UNC also came in hot for me and my family. I'm in North Carolina right now at my parents' house. My family's in North Carolina, so that was a really hard decision to say no to that. Penn State, which is, my home state, offered me full ride and stipend, and Indiana University offered me full ride and stipend. Maryland did the same. It was a lot of great schools will offer you a lot of money. If you're applying to schools where you're above the median, it's very realistic to have several full ride offers. I'm not any sort of exceptional student. This is just kind of normal if you are strategic about where you apply and just pick schools where you're going to be one of the better applicants. But to your point, you have to think beyond money because you have to take out loans anyway.
You do, definitely. And that's another thing to keep in mind too, is keep in mind, like, when you're talking about loans, the amount that you have to take out for loans will also vary based on where you live. So like for me, if I go to California, the cost of living there is higher. Even though DC's cost of living is high, it's not as high as California's. And like, let's say I would have went to Alabama, the cost of living would have been way lower. So that's another factor to keep in mind too. You don't have to take out the full loan amount. Like if you think you won't need the full cost of attendance, you don't have to take it out. You can say, no, I only want to take out 80K instead of 95K. So you have that option too.
I made the mistake of when I was at Pitt, I just always automatically took the full amount because why not? It was free money, right? Like I fooled myself into thinking that I could live this comfortable, lavish lifestyle, just taking out the max every semester. But guess what? You got to pay that all back. A little trip to Myrtle Beach with your friends, you're going to be paying that back for 30 years.
I don't know where my money went. I don't even think I took trips. I really think I just ate a lot. I don't know where my money went. Like, I literally don't know. But I also never had a roommate either in undergrad. So I think my money went to rent.
Yeah, I paid $865 a month, which is a lot in Pittsburgh for a studio apartment in a really nice neighborhood. I could have halved that just by having a roommate.
But I feel like peace of mind and quality of life is a big thing to keep in mind too, guys. So this is not really about finances, but also when it comes to like talking about a roommate and stuff, if you feel like having a roommate is going to like stress you out more, it may be worth it to live by yourself and pay a little more. Because I heard that like having peace of mind in law school is very beneficial. So
yeah, my dad told me something a long time ago where he said, everybody in the middle class, and I guess you could change this to everybody with student loans, has kind of the same baseline amount of money to work with. It's what you choose to prioritize and what you choose to cut that's going to be the difference. So if you really think that you can't handle roommates, or you don't want to risk it, you've never had roommates before and you don't want to find out your first year of law school, then budget for that. Maybe cut back, maybe you won't be able to go home for both holidays. Maybe you won't be able to go on a spring break trip. Maybe you're going to have to cut down on eating out, but cut things to add things to try to make your financial priorities line up.
exactly. Yeah, and that's something else to keep in mind for your budget too. Keep in mind like how much money you're going to spend on flights if you live far away. That's something else that I don't think I thought about at the beginning. I was like, oh, I need to think about flight and like think about the flight, like the average flight cost, like during Christmas, during spring break, or whenever I want to go somewhere, because that can add up too. And $500 when you're living off of a refund check is a lot of money.
Like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're on a fixed income, when you don't have anything coming in, every transaction hurts.
Exactly. So did you have like a total number in mind? Like, I will not take out more than this amount, or were you just like, it's the best school for me, whatever?
So before I got scholarship to Georgetown, it was really weighing heavy on my soul whether or not I wanted to take out $300K. Because when I went into the situation, my number was 200. I said, I do not want to take out more than 200 because I already have 45.
Yep.
So just thinking over the grand scheme of life, do I want to have, what is the number I want to have to show for 3 degrees, my undergrad, graduate, law? And so I decided 250 was that number. So I was like, all right, no more than 200 for law school. Georgetown, shout out Andy Kornblatt and the rest of the admissions team, because they came through, and according to Access Lex, I will only be taking out $171,000 for all 3 years.
Yeah, so that definitely works out. That's one of my questions. So I was going to talk about resources that you use, but I use Access Lex too. And even on there, you can like adjust like how many years you want to pay it back in. If you want to do 10, I think there's option for even 30 or even 5. I think like you can adjust it for how long you think it'll take you to pay it back. And then also keep in mind with your loans, you can pay more if you want. Like if your payment is $3,000 and you want to pay $5,000, feel free. You can do that.
You're not married to the number that they bill you for each month. In fact, it's smarter to pay more if you can, because that's money that's actually going to go to your principal. Whatever you pay more than the minimum, it's kind of like when you have a credit card and you make the minimum payment, you're not actually putting a dent in your credit card debt, you're just paying the interest. So student loans are that times 100. I don't know how much credit card debt people have, but like when you're making that minimum payment, you're just really paying the interest for that month. So anytime you can pay extra, or while you can pay during that grace period or while you're in school, do it, because that's money that's actually hitting your principal.
Exactly. So this isn't one of the questions, but let's talk about credit cards. So do you already have credit cards, and do you plan on using those in law school?
So if I could make one thing crystal clear, do not use credit cards in school. And I will tell you my horror story, and I'm gonna be really real and put the numbers out here and really make a fool of myself. But I have $16,000 in credit card debt.
Notice how I don't have anything to say. I'll tell my story in a second.
Okay, 15,000 of that credit card debt was racked up living large in grad school
Really?
because, I actually had pretty good credit going into grad school. Before grad school, I was always very conservative with my money and it paid off. And so American Express basically was like, hey, big head, you want this line of credit? And girl, I went off. I'm not going to talk about all the dumb stuff I did, but Latasia, when I got approved for the American Express credit card, I took my grandmother and my cousin to the Cheesecake Factory and told them get whatever they want.
Do you know how many options are on that menu? No.
And oh my goodness, I paid for a hotel room and a flight and 3 flights from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. because I went to go compete in this tournament and I wanted to bring my cousins along. But, the credit cards, it's ridiculous because now that I'm going into school again, I have these monthly payments that aren't going to stop. And basically, I'm really lucky to have this summer fellowship that's paying me pretty well. Almost every single cent of my fellowship money is going to my credit cards.
Really?
Yeah, like I'm getting paid quite generously, but I'm probably not gonna use any of it because I'm gonna be trying to pay down my credit cards frantically before I start school again.
Mm-hmm.
Because the last thing you want to do is be using student loan money to pay credit card debt.
Exactly.
So I would really, 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 really caution everybody who's thinking about law school. 1, don't open new credit cards right now. 2, pay off anything you have. Because credit card debt is a sinking pit of despair. And it only gets worse when you're not getting an income like you won't be in law school.
Yeah, so I I have 5 credit cards. I think like the one that I have, like the highest limit, I don't know, it's like 17K or something like that. But what happens with me is I get my credit cards, I get the limits increased, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I paid it down. But now I can spend more because my ratio won't be as bad because I have a higher credit limit. Because if you guys don't know, your ratio is dependent on how much money you have available and how much you actually spend. So a lower ratio is better for your credit. So what happened was when I got approved for the 17K, when they kept like raising my limit, I'm like, okay, well, I paid off all my small credit cards, like the 1,000, 3,000, whatever, paid all those off. But I kept like spending money on my credit card to the point where I was like, oh, I'm just going to use it for the points. But then what I'll do is I'll pay it off with my debit card. I never did that because I was like, I'm not using my debit card for that. So I ended up getting like $11,000 in debt on my credit card, I think. Now, I will say some things were for like emergency. So I wasn't just falling out. Some stuff was really like emergency or family situations, helping people. But what I ended up doing I ended up actually taking out a personal loan to pay off my credit card because the interest rate on the personal loan is lower than the interest rate on my credit card. But I regret doing that because now I'm like bound to that payment every month. Whereas with a credit card, I could have paid $35 a month, whereas now I'm paying like $500 a month for the personal loan payment. Yeah, exactly. So it's like it worked out if I would have paid it off. But now I'm bound to this $500 payment where I wish I was just bound to like $35. So it's like a win-win if you actually pay it off quick enough. But now it's like I'm going to have an extra $500 to worry about.
If you pay the entire balance every month, it can be a really, really great thing, a great way to build credit, and you can earn points and have all these things that they tell you in the commercials. But for me, at least, I know that I'm a shopaholic. I fully confess I don't know how to act right when I get a credit card. Money burns a hole in my pocket. So what I've done is I've basically just thrown all my credit cards in like a file and like put them away from myself. And I'm like, I'm not adding any charges onto them because it's just like I said, it is this snowball effect.
It really is. If you're a really disciplined person, then yes, you can pay your rent on your credit card to get the points and it will balance out for you. It'll be worth it. You'll get travel rewards, food rewards, gas rewards. But if you're not the type of person that's really going to pay it off with your debit card, which I'm not, don't do it. It is a trick.
Learn from mistakes.
It's not worth it. Trust me. So that was like a little side note for you guys about credit card debt. Next question. Did you apply for any outside scholarships?
I did. So this is something I probably could have done better. But there are a lot of directories on the internet that will show you 2 outside scholarships. And see, I'm lazy. I click on these outside scholarships and I see that they require an essay and all these letters of recommendation. And to be completely honest, it's a lot of work doing outside scholarships. But you got to remind yourself that that work that you're doing on the front end is so worth it, because every little bit counts. And you might sit there and you're thinking, like, why am I writing a 20-page essay for a $500 scholarship? Like, is that really gonna make a big effect? Yes it will. It's $500 less that you gotta pay back in 30 years.
Like, no, that's what that $500 is. So yes. So I did apply for, I've only applied for 1 outside scholarship so far. However, I have 4 on my list to apply for by next week. So I will be applying for more. But I applied for 1 so far, maybe 2, maybe 1 or 2. And I think I only did those because they were quick. It was like I could use my personal statement for the essay. And I kind of just like tweaked a few things and I applied for those. But yeah, even $500, $1,000, $2,000, like all of that will add up.
Do be warned though, the cost of attendance that your school sets, you are not allowed to get a cent more than that in scholarships or loans. So when you get outside scholarships, you have to report them to your school. And so let's say your school's cost of attendance is $100K and they offer you $50K in merit scholarship. So boom, you can only take out $50K of loans. And then when you get the outside scholarship, let's say you get an outside scholarship, let's be generous, let's say $10K, that $50K of loans goes down to $40. You don't get that $10K on top. So just be warned, if you're planning on living on your refund, just remember that every time you get an outside scholarship, your refund's going to be smaller.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. So are you going to apply for any private loans? I don't think I am, but are you?
No, I am not. I had my little again life lessons learned in Alyssa's mistakes. I had my own little experience with Sallie Mae. I found myself in a situation where I needed an extra $2,000 in the middle of the semester. And so Sallie Mae was all like, hey girl, we got $2K for you. And my father is the kindest, most patient, most generous man, but he's like, listen, you're not about to walk out of school with no Sallie Mae loans. So I had made a few payments on it, so he didn't pay the full $2,000, but he, as a gift for either my birthday or Christmas, I can't remember, but he was like, listen, we're getting rid of your private loan, because private loans, you want to talk about public loans being hard to deal with. Private loans are even more unforgiving. They don't often have the same repayment options. They don't get forgiven. If you get the variable interest with a private loan, you can end up paying interest rates that are absolutely ridiculous.
Credit card interest rates, like high.
Yeah. So I would really, I don't want to say one size fits all, never get private loans, because there are some situations that private loans could be better in. I just don't know them. But I would really try to exhaust every other option before you go run into Sallie Mae or Wells Fargo or whoever else may be offering you low interest rates.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So let's talk about like the structure of loans. So with like graduate loans, you can take out $20,500 in unsubsidized loans, right? And then the rest of it has to be in a grad plus loan. So if you guys took out like loans in undergrad, you can take out subsidized and unsubsidized. I think the difference is that on subsidized, the interest grows while you're in school, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have to do in graduate school. They don't even offer like the ones where the interest kind of like sits still, subsidized. They don't even offer that in graduate school. So you take out $20,500 in unsubsidized, then the rest will be graduate plus loans. But keep in mind, there's like an aggregate loan limit where you can only take out a certain amount of unsubsidized loans.
Because like you and me, because we have masters. So during law school, it's highly likely that we will hit that limit of unsubsidized loans, and we will have to do only graduate plus loans from then on. And the only difference between the two of them is that graduate plus loans, I think you have to run a credit check for them, and then they have a slightly higher, the interest rate isn't bad, but it's higher than the unsubsidized one. So if you have already gone to grad school or taken out grad loans before you're going into law school, make sure you check that limit and see how much of that you've already used.
Next question. How did you know that you could negotiate scholarships? Like, did you read that on Reddit? Did somebody tell you? Did you just try?
I honestly, so I kind of fumbled the bag with negotiation. So my personality type is very much I accept what the world gives me very quickly. So, you tell me this is your scholarship, I'm like, okay, thank you. Um, and so I didn't realize that you could negotiate scholarships. I really didn't. And then I saw people in the group me were negotiating and getting a lot of extra money, but I was like, oh, they must be like at 75th percentile or something. I'm just lucky to be at Georgetown. I'm not gonna like mess that up by asking for more money. So I emailed them really late in the game, and they gave me like 2,500 more. And I was like, okay, thank you.
Ask again.
No, but I feel like it's too late now. Like I feel like if I email them like 2 months later, they're gonna be like, but I need to get over that like shyness. It's not greedy to ask for more scholarship. A lot of times these schools will try to lowball you because they're trying to give out as much scholarship as possible to try to get people to pick their school over other offers. So sometimes they have a lot more in the tank than they're telling you.
Yep, no.
And I know I asked after the initial deposit deadline, so I knew a lot of people had probably turned down Georgetown and their money was just sitting there. And I think I got some of that money by just saying like, hey, I love Georgetown. I'm already committed, so I'm coming here, but I'm worried about, the financial impact of having gone to grad school, which made me a Georgetown level student. That's how I leveraged it. A lot of times the schools will just kind of give it to you just because you ask.
No, seriously, especially with Georgetown. Like, I think with Georgetown, another thing to keep in mind is I said this in my scholarship video, but with them, you have to actually reach out and ask for money. They don't just send scholarship offers. So, like, most schools will just, like, offer you, like, here's 5K, here's 10K. But Georgetown, no, you have to actually ask. And I think if you never ask, they'll never offer, right? Like, I don't think they ever offer people money. Unless you give, like a name scholarship, then they'll offer you.
Yeah, so what Georgetown does, and I think because other schools don't do this, but I think it's still a good idea to apply the same strategy that you have to do at Georgetown to any school. But what Georgetown does is they send out a feeler email, somewhere in like the middle of the admissions cycle, where they ask you, hey, what would your number be if you were being considered? It's like super vague and hypothetical. It's like when someone's like, if I liked you, so only a couple students get that feeler email. I don't know how it's decided, but not everyone will get that feeler email. But this is where like GroupMe's and Reddit are gonna come in clutch. If you email Georgetown right around the time that people are getting the feeler emails, if you don't get one and you say, oh, I just want to make sure I didn't miss the feeler email, 9 times out of 10 they'll send you a feeler email.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I didn't get the email. What I did, I just emailed them and said, hey, I would like to be considered. And I like sold myself like, this is what I've done before. This is how I feel about Georgetown. I'm interested in this. And then they sent me my first offer and then a second offer. And then I think I negotiated with Georgetown twice, maybe technically 3 times, got denied the last time. And I think I'm going to ask again. So yeah.
Yeah. But the point is you have to show your interest, and they don't ask for a YX statement,
but that's what they want.
Mm-hmm. Like if you read between the lines of what they're saying, they're basically saying, tell us why we should give you money. And I think that's fair. I mean, the nature of law school is that someone is always going to have to pay full ride in order for things to work financially. You just want to make sure that's not you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think we talked earlier about working during law school. So I know we don't plan on working during our 1L year, but I know for me, we're going to try to work during the summer, right? Are you going to try to work during your 2L and 3L year too, or just during the summer?
Probably just during the summer. So I did pre-law in undergrad, so I know a lot of people who they're graduating either this year or last year from law school, and none of them work during the year. And to be completely honest, law school is really different from any other grad program, where, you know, when I was doing my master's of public administration, I was able to work because the homework was like, it was not so intensive that you didn't have enough time to work and, you know, pay your rent through that. Law school is completely different. Pretty much every free moment you have to spend studying. I mean, you will still have free time, but it's not going to be enough. And honestly, you're not going to be able to walk into any sort of business and be like, hey, I can only work like 2 hours a week sometimes, depending on how much reading I have. You know, it's really hard to find like a traditional part-time job as a law student because your schedule is just so crazy. Where a lot of students get their money, their extra money that's not loans, is the summer jobs.
Exactly. Yep.
Especially in big law, the summer associateships can pay very nicely.
Yeah, because most of the time you get paid their rate. So like if they're making 190, you make that over the summer, but you make it like determined on how much they get paid every 2 weeks. If that makes sense. So I mean, you can make good money during the summer. One thing to keep in mind though, and I think Georgetown is one of these schools. At some schools, if you get need-based aid, you have to report the money you make during the summer. And so your need-based aid can decrease the next year because they'll say, well, you made money, use that money to pay for school. So keep that in mind too. That's not a reason not to do it, obviously, because you want the experience. But just keep in mind that your scholarship amount could decrease if you make a lot of money during the summer.
But yeah, I think the key here is to kind of like we were talking about with the credit cards, don't ball out over the summer.
Yep.
You know, it might be hard because you'll be broke all school year, and then you get this big check and you're like, finally, I can go, you know, I can go take that trip to Cabo or whatever. Don't do it. Live like you're poor all year long. Use that money to take out less loans.
Mm-hmm.
There will be plenty of time after graduation to live it up and spend that check. But don't, please save your summer checks.
So for me, I definitely want to work during the summer. Even my 1L summer, I'm going to try to work. If you guys don't know, they say it's kind of hard to get a big law job. 1L summer, if you're doing public interest, it's actually not that difficult from what I understand. You should be able to. But for me, I think I do actually want to try to work my 2L and 3L year a little bit. I don't know, like maybe in terms of like an externship is what I'm thinking. But I think that's just because of the type of law I want to practice. I think I'll have to do so much networking that I need to be working. But I get what you're saying, though, it's probably going to be very hard. I did talk to this one guy that goes to UCLA, and he's been working. This is his 3L year. And he's been working at the firm that he's going to work at. So they're like paying for him to take the bar. Like he's been working there like all year. He says he's not struggling too bad.
If you do work during the year, though, make sure to check your school's bylaws. So I know Georgetown, if you're doing an externship or, you know, some other type of work for credit, you cannot get paid for that.
Yep.
So just keep in mind, if you're doing work like an internship in the field, if you want to get credit for it, then you can't take a check for it. So it's all up to you whether the credit or the payment is more important to you.
So I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, but are you going to try to pay on your student loans while you're in law school, like to pay the interest down, or no?
I'm going to try to pay a little bit over the summers. I don't think I'm going to try to work during the year. If everything that I'm trying to accomplish at school happens, I don't think I'll have time to work and make an income. But over the summers, yeah, I definitely want to take the extra money from those big law summer associate checks and try to use that to pay down some of the interest on my loans.
Yeah, definitely. I probably won't. I've not learned any lessons in life, y'all. I have good credit though. I don't know how, but I've not learned any life lessons. Like I just feel like when it comes to student loans, I think I said this in the last video too. Like I'm only concerned with my monthly payment. I'm not concerned with the big number. I'm just not even going to do that because I'll go crazy. So I'm only going to concern myself with the monthly payment I have to pay when I graduate. And so like if I have an extra $20, $50, maybe, but honestly, probably not. Unless like I start making money like off of like side hustles or something like YouTube or like the clothing line that I plan on doing. That's like a plug there. You guys will see that soon. But like besides that, I don't see myself doing that. I'm going to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's really good advice. Like if you walk around every day of your life thinking about that big number, it's gonna drive you crazy. Like, it sounds like bad advice on the surface, but like, don't think about the total. Most of us will never come near paying it all off. And obviously you don't want to take out loans with no intention of paying them off, but you have to like still live your life without thinking about the larger number. And so like to your point, like if you have an extra $50, like you can put that towards your interest, but there's also other productive things you could use that towards. You could use it to pay for, study materials. You could use it to go take the train up and to, go see, like one of my friends, he's a quick plug to my friend here, but he's going to be a prosecutor in Nassau County. He just graduated from Syracuse. I want to maybe be able to go up and see him try cases. And, not only will that be fun, but really educational. I can use that extra $50 towards a train ticket to New York City versus putting that towards interest that is probably, if we're being honest, it's going to just pile back on over.
That's another thing too. I think like a lot of people get so focused on like the amount of money they're spending, but it's really about the education and the experiences you're going to get. To make the best out of law school, you need to learn as much as you can. You need to network as much as you can, and you need to expose yourself to as much as you can. And if you have to spend a little more money for that to get a better outcome in the end, I don't see why you wouldn't do that. So
it's all a balance. Like obviously you don't want to ball out and live this lavish lifestyle that no grad student should be living. But you also don't want to like live off of beans and bacon and show up wearing like, your old jacket from college because you don't buy new clothes. Like, and another thing is the profession that we're going into is very looks based. You have to invest a little money in your appearance and your, like don't ball out obviously, but you have to buy nice clothes that will look nice. Doesn't mean they have to be expensive per se, but you still got to buy them. You still got to make sure you're presentable. It was so dumb, but I was told by an etiquette specialist who was speaking to my fellowship about, entering the law sphere. Ladies, make sure your nails are done, which for me, I never do my nails. So that's just, but, like having nice nails, having a nice watch from both gentlemen and ladies, like these things sound so petty, but in the field of law, appearances, like you see all the memes, like like if your lawyer's wearing these pants, you go into jail. Like you want to make sure that you invest in yourself and your education and your career, and that you can put your best foot forward at these networking events that you should be going to. So like, yes, that $50 is better spent on a nice skirt and, 2 drinks at a networking event.
And even like in terms of the way you go to class, a lot of times your professors will help you get jobs as well. Or even like a student in class, one of your classmates, their dad could be a lawyer at the big law firm right up the road. So your appearance in general is going to matter. But definitely keep in mind, like I said, you can shop at thrift stores, you can shop plenty of places for used clothes. But just keep in mind that like, as much as we hate to say it, we live in a society where appearance matters. It just does. Especially, it matters more for certain people too. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. Women of color, we have to spend the money and do the work. So many negative stereotypes surrounding women in the workplace and people of color in the workplace. It sounds petty and dumb, but sometimes you got to dress for the job you want.
Okay, so how do you plan to pay off your debt after graduation? Are you planning on doing like the regular payment plan? Are you planning on doing other things after you graduate besides just law school? How long do you think it'll take you to pay off your debt? Do you think you'll ever pay it off?
Plan A would be to work in big law and just take a really aggressive payment stance. According to Access Lex, if I pay about half of my monthly check at big law rates, if I pay about half of my monthly check to my loans, which I should be able to do because half of a big law check is more than enough to live off of if you live frugally. So my plan is to try to keep living like I'm a student, but pay half or more of my paycheck towards my loans. And if I do that, according to Access Lex, I should be done with my loans by within 2 to 3 years after graduation.
Really?
Yes. So if you're doing big law, really consider if you can hold off on the big law lifestyle for like 3 years. If you can still live in your student apartment, if you can keep some roommates, if you can, not eat out as much, which I know is hard because when you get to big law, everybody's balling out and, you're making so much money a month, you naturally want to spend it. But if you can make the sacrifice for 2, 3, 4 years, depending on how much you have, you can be debt free by the time you're 35.
What would the payment be?
The payment. So, I wish I hadn't closed out Access Lex, but I think the take-home paycheck was about $11K a month after taxes.
Okay.
And if I paid $5K a month towards loans, I would be done in 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, so I think I did mine I assumed that I would be in Cali, and I think Cali's taxes are a little crazy. So I think when I did it, but my loan amount is closer to like 200, 215. I think yours you said was like 78, right? So yeah, mine was like closer to 200, 215. I think it said if I paid like 3,500 a month or something like that, I would be done in 10 years. I want to say that's what it said. It was something like that. I would be done in 10 years. Now for me, in 10 years, I'll be so old by then. I don't even know if it'll matter to me. But yeah, so I think ideally I want to have it paid off quicker than 10 years. But like I said, I'm not going to, I don't know, it'll be different for me because if I'm living in Cali, the cost of living in Cali is so crazy. I don't know if I would be able to pay more than half of my, of my paycheck. So I think it just depends on where you live too, guys. That's something else to keep in mind. Like the cost of living where you live will also have an effect on how much you can pay towards your student loan. So if you live somewhere that's like cheaper cost of living, or if you're living with like parents or a spouse or whatever, that can change the process too. But I think overall for me, I'm definitely going to try to get it paid off in 10 years. If less, that would be great. But 10 years for me, I say.
And don't forget, if you go to a big law firm, you can also get very hefty bonuses at the end of the year. A lot of times these associates get like 5-figure bonuses. And again, if you can, because I understand the temptation, I'm probably going to give into it. If you can, take that bonus and instead of using it as a new car or down payment on a house, if you can just hold off and put your first 3-4 years of bonuses straight to your loans, you can get rid of those loans real fast.
Yeah, and a bonus is like money you weren't expecting. So you really should be able just to say, like, I never even got this. Let me just go ahead and put it towards my student loans, So
yeah. You got to make sure that it's taxed before you do this. But if they take out the taxes for you, just put the whole thing towards your loans. Like I said, with big law, the amount of money that you're making as a first year, and you usually get a raise each year too. If you're willing to live poor for just 2-3 years, and I think anybody can do that. You were poor for 3 years in law school. You can do it for another 3 years. And just imagine being debt free on big law money.
Exactly. Yeah, because the thing is, even though like we're saying like, oh, you only have to worry about the payment, if you could have an extra $3,500 or $5,000 a month and not have to pay that towards student loan, it's definitely worth it. I will say, keep in mind though, guys, like you can be however aggressive you want or however, light you want to be on your payment. So if you want to take out like a different payment plan, an income-based payment plan, if you don't end up making 190, I know like everybody that's watching this does not want to do big. So if you plan on doing public interest, look into LRAP plans, right? They like pay back your loan for you. Look into those. Or just keep in mind, like if you're not making 190, if you're making 80K, if you're making 60K, you can get your payment plan adjusted for your income. So don't think you can pay 3,000, 5,000. We're just talking like aggressive numbers here. You can pay way less. It'll just take you longer to pay off, but
this is one strategy that works for some people. A lot of people prefer to stretch it out over 30-40 years and just make small monthly payments, and that way they can really enjoy most of the money that they make. Some people, Georgetown's LRAP, I'm sorry, I keep bringing up Georgetown, but that's just the one I know the most. Georgetown's LRAP essentially pays your loans for you until public service loan forgiveness kicks in. So if you're willing to take on a lot of debt and you are consistent and work in PI for 10 years, you basically get your Georgetown education for free.
Yeah, I think there's definitely benefits. If you're doing public interest, like you should definitely care about your loan, but I feel like it's a completely different process for people that are doing public interest. And I think Janelle talked about that in like the part 1 of that last series we did. So guys, go back and watch that video because she goes into detail about it. But yeah, definitely. I think it varies based on your whole situation. Everybody's situation will be different. And just keep in mind that with your loan, you can always adjust your payments as you go. You can defer, you can do a lot of things with student loans. So keep that in mind. So I don't have any other questions. Really, anything else you wanted to share? Any like general tips, general thoughts about paying for law school, finances, etc.?
I would say that if you take anything away from this conversation of all the stuff that I've spewed today, make sure that you prioritize what's important to you, make the necessary cuts to make that a reality, and just really remind yourself, be forward thinking. I know that it's so easy to spend that check when August 28th rolls around and you wake up with 10K in your account. I know the first thought that I have is to run to the mall. If you make little sacrifices now, you don't even have to make big sacrifices. If you just make little sacrifices, you set a cap on how many times you go out, you maybe do brunch once a month instead of every week. If you just keep in mind that you are a student and you have no income, then you can manage to have a good time while still not being financially devastated.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I think like the final advice I would give is just make sure that you make a complete budget of all your expenses before you go to law school. Even like things you don't think about, your Netflix, your Hulu, your phone bill. Think about like if something happened to your car, put like a little savings budget, an emergency fund in there. Like count for every single thing. Like go through your bank account and look at everything you spend money on and put a budget for that in your budget. Because that really will have to fit into the money that the school gives you. And if you can start cutting things now, try to cut them now. If you can figure out ways to like make money on the side now, start thinking about that. I would just say just start trying to save money and start trying to be realistic about how much money you'll have when you get to law school. Mm-hmm. Especially if you're someone that has been making money and you're about to go to making $0. Think about that because your lifestyle will change a lot.
Your lifestyle will change. Do the prep up front. And it's better to be pleasantly surprised and have to call your school's financial aid office and say, hey, can you take back 2K? Than to have to do an adjustment and talk to Sally Mae because you didn't plan for January. Oh, that's a plan for January rent with your fall semester check.
Yep. Yeah. Get the money in time. That's something I learned from like undergrad. Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
For your August rent, you won't get the money in time for that. You'll have to
your August rent before August. And summer rent too. Like if you're not going to be working over the summer, you need to make sure that you set aside enough rent to cover so that you have a home over the summer.
Oh yeah, that's another thing too. Your cost of attendance is only for 9 months. It's not for 12 months. So whenever they give you that number, like on the school's website, that is not counting 12 months. So when you make your own budget, you need to divide that number by 12 months. That's another thing to keep in mind too. Another thing I forgot to mention, just to be like completely transparent, for my like in terms of how I'm paying for school, I'm paying with loans, but I am also getting money from like the military. My dad was in the military and I wasn't able to use his money in undergrad or for my MBA for whatever reasons. So now I'm able to use the money. So I am going to get, I think it's like $1,200, something like that a month from them. So that will definitely help me as well. I know some people are probably thinking, oh, so are you not going to take that money out from your loans? No. I'm still going to take it out because, like I said, I've got used to living a certain way and I'm not going to have a roommate. So I'm still going to take out the maximum amount of loans and I'll just have that too. But I don't know. That's something for you guys to look into. If you are military yourself or if your parents are military, even like any type of guardian, look into that. See if you can get some military benefits as well.
Yeah, the military benefits are real. I am very jealous of people who qualify for them because they actually help you with your books and you get a little stipend and it's really helpful.
Yeah, it's like a stipend I'm getting. So yeah, I don't have to pay taxes on it or anything. So yep, that was like a whole process. But if anybody wants to know like how I went back and did it because I'm over 26, if anybody wants to know, like leave a comment down below and I'll, or DM me or whatever and we can talk about how I was able to go back and make them give me the money they owe me. So so yeah, guys, nothing else for this video really. Thank you so much, Alyssa. Always a pleasure.
Oh.
Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed that video. Like I said, we did talk about a lot of different topics. Hopefully you guys we learn from each other in the video. If you have any other questions, leave them down below. Anything else that you guys wanted to hear about regarding finances, paying for law school, taking out loans, getting scholarships, negotiating scholarships, anything else you want to know, leave some questions, comments down below, and I will see you guys in my next video. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all of that. Bye, y'all.